In this video, I'm going to talk about the tools and techniques I use to make my game using Google Slides. This game is about the environmental issue of deforestation, and the player will play the game by going through the adventure of Groot, which is a character borrowed from Guardians of the Galaxy. As Groot goes on his journey, the player will have to answer the questions and help him to complete Groot's mission. I'll explain how I built each section of the game and the technical skills involved. When I first opened the blank presentation, I went to the theme builder under View in the toolbar. Operating in the theme builder allowed me to make changes to the entire presentation, including changing the font style, font size, layout, background, etc. The changes I made here cannot be changed in the normal view mode, which prevents me from accidentally moving something I don't want to move. After setting up the presentation theme, I was able to see the different layout styles here, and I applied the layout I wanted to the blank slides. Next, I built up the storyline of my game by inserting the characters, images, narration boxes, and speech bubbles into the slides. I wanted the speech bubbles to slowly appear beside the character, so I added the animation by right-clicking the desired speech bubble and then select Animate. The motion pane will appear on the right-hand side of the screen. I went to the Object Animation and opened the drop-down menu to select Fade In, and select with previous or after previous depending on my need. I also added animations to many other objects as well using the same method. I didn't want the player to be able to go to the next slide by just clicking anywhere on the slide, so I inserted a hand icon at the bottom right corner of each slide to allow the player to move on to the next slide. Right-click on the hand icon and select Link, or simply press Command K to attach the link of the next slide to the icon. After I had the slides all set up, I inserted a transparent rectangle and post on top of each slide, and pressed Command K to link the current slide to the transparent rectangle itself. This prevents the player from going to the next slide when clicking on a blank space on the slide, and that the player can only go to the next slide when clicking on a specific object. It is important to adjust the order of the objects by right-clicking the desired objects and select Order. I always place the transparent rectangle underneath the buttons that allow the player to click, such as the enter box or the hand icon, but move the transparent rectangle on top of everything else. To make the section of the multiple choice questions in my game, I created 4 answer boxes on the question slide. Under the question slide, I created one slide telling the player that he's correct and created another slide telling the player that he's wrong. I attached the link of the correct answer slide to the correct answer on the question slide, and then attached the link of the wrong answer slide to the other 3 wrong answers on the question slide. So when the player clicks on the correct answer, he will go to the correct answer slide, and when he clicks on the wrong answer, he will go to the wrong answer slide. I designed that the player has to retry the question if he gets it wrong, so I created a try again box on the wrong answer slide, and attached the link of the question slide to the try again box, so the player will go back to the question slide when clicking on the try again button, and attempt the question again until he gets it right. I inserted a price icon at the top right corner of each slide to keep track of the number of seeds the player has collected throughout the game. Every time the player earns extra seeds, I animate the icon to spin. When I was making the game of fill in the blank, I didn't want the player to have to escape the full screen mode to drag the enter box into the correct place. So I inserted links to the enter boxes for the player to click on. As for filling out the first blank, I created 3 slides for clicking on the wrong answer, and created 1 slide for clicking on the right answer. On the wrong answer slide, I duplicated the wrong answer box but changed its color to red. I animated the red answer box to fade in and fade out quickly, to indicate that the player clicks the wrong answer. The player will proceed to the next blink until he chooses the correct answer for the first blink. I repeated these steps for the rest of the blinks, but the answer box will disappear once the player has already used it in the previous blink. When making the board game, I faked the effect as if the player takes the steps randomly based on the number the dice lands on. I first set up the board game and inserted a rolling dice GIF beside the instructions. I made a duplicate slide under the slide, but inserted a picture of the dice underneath the dice GIF. I attached a link of the duplicate slide to the rolling dice GIF on the original slide, and then on the duplicate slide, I animated the dice GIF to disappear with previous. So when the player clicks on the rolling dice on the original slide, he goes to the duplicate slide, and then the picture of the dice will reveal as the GIF disappears. Every time the player rolls the dice and moves steps forward, I animated the icon of Groot to disappear on the current block and let the duplicate Groot icon to appear on the block ahead based on the number of steps he takes. After that, I animated the question to appear for the player to answer. Again, I created two slides under the question slide. One is for answering the question correctly, and one is for answering incorrectly. I added the try again button to allow the player to attempt the question again. For the rest of the game, I demonstrated mostly my skills of using the transitions and animations to let the player engage in the game. I attached a link to the next page on the object I asked the player to click on. For example, I created a slide showing the animation of a rain cloud watering the seeds, and attached a link to this slide to the rain cloud icon on the previous slide. So when the player clicks on the rain cloud icon, he'll be able to see the animation of the cloud raining over the land. To make the cloud move around and above the land, I duplicated the same cloud 4 times and placed them at different locations, and animated them to fade in and fade out one after the other. This makes the clouds look like they are lingering over the field. At last, I added sound effects and music to the slide by inserting audio from my drive that I had already downloaded from Zapsplat. I clicked on the audio file I would like to insert and went to Format Options. Under Audio Playback, I set the audio to play automatically and stop on slide change. I also selected Hide Icon when presenting, so the player will not be able to see the icon when in the full screen mode. I imported a clicking sound to every slide so there will be an indication when the player clicks on the hand icon button to go to the next slide. I imported sound effects for answering the questions correctly or incorrectly to indicate whether the player gets it right or not. I also added some special sound effects to particular scenes to make the game more interesting, such as the raining sound effect when watering the seeds, and the cheering sound when the player completes the mission.